Most Americans don't realize that in this country, in the United States, there's a shadow government. It's a government that operates behind the scenes, that at a moment's notice could step forward from the shadows, and most likely will in the future.
A shadowy government with its own Air Force, its own Navy, its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue its own ideas of the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted
control of the government. This is reflected in several directives that were issued by George Bush in 2007, and they're called the continuity of government, in which, in order for the government to survive, supposedly, in a national emergency, which could mean anything, by the way, anything that greatly affects the United States. It could be a hurricane, it could be a terrorist attack. Non-elected officials, which George Bush is stationed outside of Washington, D.C., would step in and take control of the government. At that point, if there was an attack on Washington, D.C., for example, Congress would not be reconvened, the Supreme Court would not be reconvened. You would have a martial law state declared. And that's a nice name or euphemism for a military dictatorship. He claims that the government has a computer system called Main Core, which catalogs and basically lists so-called dangerous individuals in the United States. These could be anybody. It could be me. It could be you. It could be anyone that supposedly opposes the United States government. In other words, dissidents. And the worst case scenario, according to Ketchum in his article in Radar magazine, is that in a time of national emergency, such as a terrorist attack or a natural disaster, the government could round up so-called dangerous individuals who may be protesting. For example, people that were recently upset with the Wall Street fiasco that were protesting in front of Wall Street buildings and some in front of the White House, etc. They could be rounded up and put into concentration camps. Detention camps. The idea of putting people in detention camps is not so far-fetched, because several years ago, a subsidiary of the Halliburton Corporation, which has done a lot of the private contract work and made a lot of money off of taxpayers' backs in so-called rebuilding Iraq, was given a $385 million contract to build concentration or detention camps in this country, supposedly and this has been the argument, that it would be for illegal aliens or immigrants and those kind of people. But the language is so vague in the contract that it can mean anyone, even people who are politically opposed, who exercise their free speech rights either on the internet or through demonstrating or whatever. They could be considered a dangerous individual and be put in one of these detention camps. Representative Jim McDermott of the state of Washington became so alarmed by what he was hearing about the roundup of different citizens and the idea of detention camps that he gave a stirring speech in the U.S. House of Representatives where he discussed this and said, hey, we have a history of this. Remember back in the 1940s when we rounded up Japanese Americans and put them in concentration camps. This becomes even more disturbing with the recent news, the very recent news, the deployment of military personnel on American soil for the first time under NORTHCOM, which is a military command unit which was set up in 2002 to take control again if there was a natural disaster or some kind of national emergency where we would need to declare essentially martial law. The scary thing, and this has been detailed in a recent Army Times article, is that these troops on American soil right now are being trained in police tactics, the use of batons, roadblocks, tasers even. So they're going to become police. Well, this is in direct violation of the 230-year-old Posse Comitatus law, which says you're not supposed to be in this country putting the military on the streets to be policemen. It's a very dangerous thing to do because policemen and military personnel are trained to do two separate things. The police are supposedly trained to keep peace. Military soldiers are trained to kill. They're trained to fight the enemy. And that's the danger of all this. But this is actually happening in America. What's the solution here? The United States Congress, which has shirked its duty for years and given over its responsibility to the President, to the executive branch, needs to formulate its own continuity of government plans where it specifies that in times of a national emergency, wherever that may be, Congress and the Supreme Court have to be reconvened. We have to keep a proper balance in government. The President should not declare martial law except under extreme circumstances. These all should be put down plainly in the law. What we're facing now, if Congress does not do its job, and if we don't get the President or future presidents under control, our own government is becoming more of a threat than any type of outside threat from a foreign enemy.
When you've got organizations which bring together the most influential people in power from around the world, who meet in secret, who try as much as they can to keep knowledge of the event quiet, and then their policies become policy in fact in the world, then you start to surely ask very serious questions.
In 1954, Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands invites a group of Western European and North American leaders to a weekend conference at the Hotel Bilderberg in Oosterbeek, Holland. The meeting is held in secret, and they decide to make the conference an annual private retreat, which continues to this day.
The Bilderbergers are the most secretive of the modern secret societies. They're so secretive they don't even have a name, much less publish a membership
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Anything like that. Now, some of the members are known because they've been observed at their meetings, and some of the members have talked and mentioned some people, so we do have an idea of who attends the Bilderberg meetings, which are heavily under guard, heavily secret.
Attendees are believed to include Henry Kissinger, Bill Clinton, David Rockefeller, Tony Blair, Peter Jennings, and an endless list of princes, chancellors, ambassadors, and media magnates.
If you try to imagine who went, that's who did go.
The annual gathering of about 115 elite leaders is informally known as the Bilderberg or the Bilderbergers, after the hotel where it first met.
They take place one weekend a year. They usually take place in some Western European country. Every 4 years, I think they take place in the United States. They're nearly always at resorts.
Security for these meetings is extremely tight.
In my experience, especially in Europe, quite frequently the military itself is deployed. Then there's a large number of uniformed, armed cops.
Jim Tucker is a self-appointed Bilderberg watchdog. At the 1999 conference in Portugal, Tucker tries to get close to the hotel where the meeting is taking place.
And the cop bragged, we have snipers on top of those boulders up there, and if anybody going over that fence day or night, they're going to stay over that fence. So apparently they take security rather seriously.
The reason for all the security, say the conspiracy advocates, is obvious.
I don't think 120 of the world's most powerful men get together to play pinochle.
This is where the ruling elite within these secret societies go and gather and compare notes and apparently set agendas. One of the members of the Bilderbergers years ago said that they talked about opening up China, and within months, President Nixon had gone and opened up China